Hey, welcome to Real Talk, where I give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here to leadingworshipwell.com/realtalk to submit your question for a future episode, and I just might answer it. Got some good questions this week. Let's talk about it. For this first question, we've actually got a guest joining us today. I couldn't answer this question on my own, so I had to bring in a heavy hitter. This is my friend Alex Enfiagen from Worship Ministry Training. If you don't know who he is, he's had a podcast for a really long time now, longer than I've been doing this YouTube channel, so he's got a lot of great thoughts. Take it away, Alex.
Hey, my name is Alex from Worship Ministry Training, and I am stoked to help answer this question. So here is the question. I have 6 leaders on my team, 2 services every Sunday, 4 of them leading different songs every Sunday. I juggle them depending on the song. I have recently started hearing the leaders say that they want to sing backup, not lead. I feel like they might be running away from their responsibility. How would you handle this? Well, first of all, I just want to affirm you that, I don't know your name, but I want to affirm you that it's great that you're seeking wisdom, because honestly, Spencer is a very wise, smart, gifted, and godly dude. So you are smart for following him and for seeking help from someone like him. So good for you for that. I do have a few thoughts about this question. And the first thing I would say is to you seek out more information. Like, there is a reason going on why all of a sudden, recently, you said, all of a sudden, all of them are starting to not want to lead songs. And Proverbs 25:2 says, it is the glory of a king to seek out a matter or to search things out. So you're not a king, but you are the leader. And it is your duty, your job, your glory, it's your privilege to try to figure out what's going on with your team, what's going on with your leaders. Why are they starting to back out right now? And so I would encourage you to do some exploratory digging, okay? And what that means is have a private conversation with these leaders. And I would encourage you to do it one-on-one, because one, you want to avoid groupthink where one person says something and the other person says, yeah, that, and then you don't really get to the truth of the matter. I would actually have those conversations one-on-one. And that way, each person is going to share their own experience with you, and you'll get a better picture of what's actually happening in this situation. So just have a private conversation, whether you go out to coffee or you just pull them into your office or whatever. But ask them like, hey, I noticed this, and always start with, I noticed this, right? I noticed that da-da-da-da, lately you've da-da-da-da-da. So why are they wanting to take breaks? Are you feeling burnt out? Are you feeling discouraged? Are you feeling not supported? Are you feeling like the church isn't really worshiping with you and so you feel embarrassed? Or what is it? Maybe they're feeling spiritually disqualified or unqualified. Maybe there's sin in their life that's like sapping their spiritual energy or making them feel guilty or unworthy, and they don't want to stand up in front and be a leader right now because they're, privately struggling. So you as the leader need to get into the weeds and dig around a little bit and try to figure out what's going on with them. So that's the first thing I would share. The second thing I would share is that maybe they just need a break from time to time, okay? If you're scheduling them every single week, I would encourage you to not do that. I would encourage you to give them some weeks off, because everybody needs a break, and everybody potentially can burn out if we're always pouring out, and never taking a rest and just being out in the church and filling up or participating in corporate worship ourselves. It's hard. And if they're volunteers, they have full-time jobs, they might have families, and then they're also doing this every single week. I would encourage you to space out your singers and your leaders and not have them singing every single week, okay? So give them a break. And the third thing I would share, and this will be the last one, is that they may have lost kind of the central meaning or purpose of what it is that they're doing. Like, it's just become a routine or a rut, and they're just doing it without really like being connected to the core central purpose and meaning. And that's a problem, because when people lose touch with why they're doing something, then they lose their motivation. Like, the why always drives the what. The why always spurs people on towards action. When you feel like, I must share the gospel because people are going to hell without Christ, like I'm compelled to tell everyone, like that central purpose compels your actions, right? And the same is true with our teams. Like, maybe your leaders have lost touch with what they're doing and what it really means. And it's your job as the leader of the leaders to infuse vision into them and to connect them back to their purpose and their center and their core. And if they're pouring out every week, but you're not pouring into them, then they're going to be running on empty. This kind of goes back to the second point. So it's your job as the leader of the leaders to be discipling them, to be helping them understand what they're doing, to be pouring spiritual juju on them. Like, hey, we're going to read this verse before we get on stage. Hey, we're going to talk about this concept in the scriptures so that you are just feeling motivated and connected to your why. And so if you help them grow in their walk, if you help them grow in their connection and communion and love for God, then I promise you they will have more motivation to get up on stage, sing, and serve. And so this actually might be an opportunity, not just for you to evaluate what's going on with them, but for you to evaluate yourself as a leader and to evaluate your own leadership. And I'm not saying you're doing a bad job. I'm just saying a lot of times when we see something happening in the team, we also have to look at ourselves and go, okay, how can I lead them better? And so I would just encourage you to keep that humble posture and ask God, Lord, what am I doing that's maybe not helping the situation? Or maybe in what areas, Lord, can I grow as a leader to lead these leaders? And God is using this opportunity so that you can grow into an even better, kinder, stronger, and godlier leader. And so I hope this answer helps. Ultimately, be patient with them. Paul says to be patient with everyone that we're encouraging. So be patient with them, be loving, be kind, be generous towards them. And ultimately, you will need to respect their decisions, especially if they're volunteers. So hope this answer helps you. If you need more encouragement, I would encourage you to visit worshipministrytraining.com and also just binge watch all of Spencer's content on this channel because he's created a gold mine for worship leaders. So thank you, Spencer, for letting me answer this question. And thank you, viewer, for watching this. And God bless you guys.
Thank you so much, Alex, for your wisdom, your insight. Thank you for your gracious words. I appreciate it. If you don't know who Alex is, he runs a website called worshipministrytraining.com, and he has a podcast called Worship Ministry Training. He's been doing that for a long time. He's got great insight, as you just heard, and he just relaunched Worship Ministry Training Academy, which is a place where you can go to get amazing resources on a monthly basis. There's new classes being added all the time. There's Q&A sessions. There's a bunch of different stuff to train you to lead your worship ministry well. And since him and I are friends, he wants to offer people in the Leading Worship Well community a 15% discount on the Academy. So go check that out down in the description below. I'll leave a link down there and you can check out the Worship Ministry Training Academy. This next question comes from Marie. It says this is going to be a long one. I'm not sure how to proceed or even to say anything at all to my pastor about how I feel. I don't want to come across as judgmental or controlling. By the way, if you submit a question through my website, please try to keep it short, like 3 paragraphs at the most, hopefully 2. The more concise you are, the more likely I will be to answer it. But I'm going to answer this one, even though it's long. It says this: our church has been going through a transition the past 2 years. I've been at the church for 3 years, and when we started, they had a younger couple that were the worship and children's ministry leaders. I enjoyed the song service. She would choose a mix of songs, old and new, then they left, and a few other families. Another couple took over, but left in less than a year. I didn't really enjoy the service as much because they didn't really lead, just got up and sang some songs. Another younger lady took over the youth and playing keyboard, since the couples that had left were also the piano players. She was also having some of the youth help out on Sundays for worship, calling it Youth Week. After seeing that they may need some help, I volunteered to help play piano and whatever they may need. I played and sang for most services until the pastor called and asked if I would be the worship leader. I told him that I would be willing to take that on, but some weekends my work keeps me from being there. He said he would have the youth leader help out on those Sundays. For context, the youth leader has grown up in this church. Since then, we have lost a few key families that were supporting the worship service, so now we have minimal music and even fewer singers. The youth leader lost most of the teenagers that were singing. The youth has a separate service during the week. My issue is that the pastor is insisting that the youth leader keep leading with 1 or 2 teen singers. She doesn't really sing. She has shown poor judgment with song choice, choosing songs for the youth rap, and the youth do not even attend the main services. Even though the pastor asked me to lead, he's making choices that affect the service and could potentially lose even more members. Here's the question. Should I bring up my concerns? Show him your application for being on the worship team? I feel like if someone is going to be leading worship, they should be at least attending the services and be strong Christians, and there needs to be some instruction on song choice. I also feel that one or two inexperienced teenagers is not enough to hold the whole worship service. Or should I just let it ride, as it's not my Sunday and I have no input? Myself and the other members of my team are older adults. We gravitate toward older songs, but I'm trying to incorporate newer songs in the mix. All right, here's my advice, and I think I need to start here. Your pastor asked you to, you said, be the worship leader. I'm wondering if they said, would you lead worship? And I think perhaps what you misheard, at least how I'm reading it and how your pastor is acting in this situation, is that when your pastor asked you that, he was not saying, hey, would you be in charge of the entire worship ministry? He was saying, would you lead worship on Sundays? And maybe for you, you thought, yes, I'll do that. Now I'm in charge of the entire worship ministry. But it doesn't sound like that's what your pastor had in mind. And so I feel like you need to, first of all, clarify what your position actually is. There's a difference, and this is for everybody, not just for you. There's a difference between someone asking you to lead worship and someone asking you to step into a position of leadership over the entire worship ministry. The phrase, will you lead worship or will you be the worship leader, is ambiguous at best. Why? Because everybody means different things whenever they say that. And maybe you thought, okay, now I'm in charge of the whole flow of the service and everything that happens within the worship ministry, including being over this youth leader that you keep mentioning and the youth who are serving in a worship leading capacity. I'm willing to bet that your pastor probably, whenever you said, I can't be there every Sunday, your pastor probably went to the youth leader and said, hey, Marie can't be here every Sunday. Would you be the worship leader? You've probably said the same thing to the youth leader. And so my point is, you just need to clarify your position, because I suspect that the decisions that you want to make are not under your authority. I don't think that you have the authority probably to make the decisions that you wish that you could make. It doesn't seem to me, at least the way that you describe it and the way that the pastor is acting, it doesn't seem to me that you are really in charge of the worship ministry. They just asked you to lead worship. He just asked you, would you lead worship? Because we don't have a worship leader. So, first of all, define what your position actually is. If your position is as I expect and you're not actually in charge of the worship ministry, you can do one of two things. Number one, you can step into that, or you can ask to step into that responsibility. Say, hey, I'd love to put some more structure around our worship ministry. Talk to your pastor about this. Can I do that? Can I be in charge of the worship ministry, including leading, not just when I'm here on Sunday, but also equipping the youth leader and the students who are leading worship on Sunday? I would love to step into that role. Would that be okay with you? Does that make sense for us as a church right now? I would start there. If that's not where it's actually at, and it's just like, I want you to get up and lead worship when it's your Sunday, but we also have the youth leader over here who's going to do the same thing, then yeah, it's probably not your responsibility to say anything, at least in any authoritative sense. Now, even though you aren't in charge, you can bring up your concerns with your pastor, or you can bring up your concerns with the youth leader. You could go to them and say, hey, I'd just love to be on the same page with you guys and make sure that we are working towards a common, unified vision for the worship ministry, because I view it as a crucial, important part of the church. So I just want to share what I think, and then I'd love to hear kind of where your heads are at so that we can work together to lead the worship ministry as best as we possibly can. And then you can bring up, I think that there should be requirements or expectations for worship team members. Here's what I think is a good starting place for people who want to lead worship. When it comes to song choice, This is sort of my philosophy for how I pick songs. I don't know what you guys think about this, but this is what I think of whenever I pick songs for the worship service. You can talk about the things that you believe without saying we have to do them this way. Now, the other thing that you need to consider is, and I know this as somebody who has served in ministry, there's nothing that frustrates me more than when somebody comes up to me and just complains about things that are obvious problems, but they don't actually bring a solution to the problem. So, do you have a solution? Because what I'm hearing is going to happen is you are going to go to the pastor and say, hey, I don't think that the youth should be leading worship on Sundays, and I don't like the songs that the youth leader is picking, and she doesn't sing, and so I think that they shouldn't lead worship anymore, and we need more people to lead worship. But, I work some Sundays, so I can't do it. Where does that get you? Your pastor probably already knows that. And this is what happens all the time in church. And I'm not trying to be hard on you. I'm just saying I've seen this over and over again in the church. It's like people come to the people in charge, and the people who are leaders in the church already know the problem exists most of the time, but there's no good solution. And so people in the church just come and complain about the problem that is a clear problem, usually having to do with we need more volunteers, actually, now that I think about it, which is kind of where you're at in your case. We need more volunteers. We need more people. We need a children's ministry, and I don't have anywhere to send my kids. Oh, you want a children's ministry? Well, would you be willing to serve once or twice a month in the kids' ministry during the church service? Oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that. That's what I don't want you to do whenever you do this, because you're going to say, from what I'm hearing, hey, I don't think these people should be leading worship. I think we need more people to lead on that Sunday. All right, well, are you willing to find a way to be here on Sundays to lead worship? Oh, no, I couldn't do that. I have other responsibilities. And I'm not saying that your other responsibilities, you have a job that means that you work on Sundays. I'm not saying that that is, anything bad. I'm just saying, come with a solution. What's your solution? What's your solution? Or at least try to work towards a solution with your pastor and this youth leader. So, define your position. Make sure you know what it is. If it is not what you seem to think it is, come at it with patience, with gentleness, with general concern, but not authoritatively. Talk to the youth leader who's leading worship and your pastor and say, I want to make sure that we're on the same page as we are leading the worship ministry or as we are serving in the worship ministry. And then number 3, don't just tell them a problem. Come with a solution, or at least work towards a solution. Now, it sounds like the main problem is that you don't have any sort of system for your worship ministry. That's what I'm hearing in this. And if you want to start building a system for your worship ministry, I've got the worship team toolkit linked down in the description below. In that, you will find the code of conduct and the worship ministry guidelines that you talked about in the question. You'll find that down in the description below, and that will get you started on building a system for your worship team. We've got the code of conduct guidelines and the application form. So check that out down in the description below. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.